There we go. Just want to get that dog in there. Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show, everybody. Thanks for everybody that's on the chat already, waiting for us. A little late, but we gotta go. We gotta go. Here we go. All right. Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show, amigos. This is what we like to call Monday Night Football. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If it's not, welcome anyways. We're going to have an exciting show. I am Wiso from Footmex Nation, and our intro, this is an hour-long podcast dedicated to all things Mexican football, Mexican soccer, as we like to call it. Let's get right into it. Let's start with our question. Which new player is having the best season in Liga MX thus far? In other words, who's your rookie of the year if we have to go into it? Well, let's start Mr. Cesar Hernandez in Tijuana, San Diego. Covers Cholos and many other things. Cesar, ¿cómo estamos?
Doing well. Hopefully this is a too noisy podcast. I know Naive was saying that his neighbors are playing drums. I can hear your dog's background. My neighbors
that's
are
actually
listening
not my
to
dogs.
That's my dog.
I think those are dogs.
Tom. Oh my God, dude! Kick that guy off the show. I don't even know what he does here sometimes.
Naive neighbors are playing the drums. Somebody's watching Monday Night
looks.
Football.
Just the good looks.
Well, my answer for the question before we go too crazy on distractions here, it has to be Jonathan Gonzalez. I looked at, all of the votes online for the question. I agree with everyone else. I mean, the kid is doing this at 18 years old. He's doing this for the team that is easily the best in Mexico right now, in a very crucial position for Monterrey. So I'm going to say, yeah, it has to be Jonathan Gonzalez.
Jonathan Gonzalez. Going over to Mr. Naive en la Ciudad de México, Mexico City, el defectuoso. Naive.
El DF. Buenas noches, caballeros.
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 Hello.
No, I think...
We don't deserve that.
No, caballeros.
Buenas noches, güeyes, hijos de la...
Whoa.
What's it called? With Jonathan Gonzalez, I do agree. I think it's been a special season. But if we had to add another name, I think I would say Andres Mosquera, defender León. He can play as center back. He can play as right back. He's excelling expectations over there in León, and I think it's one of the reasons why León is where it's at right now. So Mosquera will be my rookie of the year in a sense, coming from Colombia to Mexico. But when we look at the word rookie, we think about youngsters going through the ranks in youth teams, and I think Gonzalez fits the bill perfectly in that sense. So Gonzalez and Mosquera deserves mention. Think about.
All right. How about you, Tom?
Yeah,
Tom Marshall, Mexico World Cup in Guadalajara. ¿Cómo estamos?
Bien, gracias, Wiso. Jonathan Gonzalez as well. He's 18 years old, like we said. It's the people he's keeping out of the team. Zavala has not got a shot. Molina's not playing. I mean, two players that have been not regulars, but they've played for the Mexican national team, and Jonathan Gonzalez has come in. He doesn't play like an 18-year-old. His maturity goes way beyond an 18-year-old. He made his debut this season, and he's kept the starting spot. And it's not in any old team. It's in the best team by a distance that we've seen this Apertura, and it's pretty amazing what he's done. It's difficult to overstate how to consolidate himself in that kind of environment. Monterrey played with two Mexican players at the weekend. And for him to come in and do that is pretty amazing, to be honest. And as a quick aside, 19, which doesn't allow minors to move countries. Players like Jonathan Gonzalez aren't now moving to Mexico because that kid's been there since he was like 15, I believe, or 16.
He's been there. He's been there for 3 years. Yeah.
So he actually goes against FIFA rules, but I think it's good for young Mexican American players if they get an opportunity with a good Mexican club. And obviously he's reaping the rewards now. And the question moving forward is, which national team? He's played all his youth soccer for the US. He seems pretty committed to the US. But
how he can switch over?
There is a chance, yeah. I mean, I know the Mexican Federation aren't ruling it out. I know they're very keen on him because why wouldn't you be with what he's been doing recently? But I think Bruce Arena before he left was speaking to him. Tab Ramos as well.
I mean, this is all about what's the best interest for the player, right? That's what we've seen on both sides. Who's going to get to play in a World Cup?
I did read an article once about him that said that he actually grew up supporting Chivas as a kid, and that Chivas actually approached him and they wanted to sign him when he was a part of the Alianza program. But the reason why he didn't choose him was because he still wanted to be eligible for the U.S. men's national team.
It's like the
when he got older
story, but flipped over.
yeah. So that was one of the reasons why he decided to stick with a team like Monterrey and not Chivas when he did the Alianza program.
I'd be very surprised if he played for Mexico. Just from what I've heard, he's very kind of set on the United States, and yeah, I mean at the World Cup, obviously they're not going to go there, but really, would he get in Mexico's squad for this World Cup? I don't think so. I think that's the issue, and I think US Soccer, what they're going to say to him is, look, we've messed up. We're not in this time.
We need you.
We're clean. It's a clean out now. It's a clean out with players. Dempsey's not there. All the older players are going to leave, and you're part of this. With Pulisic and those kind of guys, you're the next generation. You're going to be playing.
Yeah. Like we really, really need you. Like I know we said to other players that we might take them, like Yarro and the others, but no, we really need you.
And then you also have to think, what if Mohamed becomes the Mexico national team coach? In the next process, and you think, well, if he's already coaching me and maybe in the future he becomes a Mexico coach, why not say yes to Mexico? I mean, if you're doing well in Mexico, in Liga MX, in a team like Monterrey, and the quality shows. I mean, look at Cesar Montes. He already played in the national team, maybe not in the senior level, not a starter, but he's already part of the picture. Well, Gonzalez fits that bill as well. He can end up being in the Mexico national team without a problem if he keeps putting up the games that he's putting on.
Yeah.
Well, in obviously the Mexican Soccer Show poll, Jonathan Gonzalez 52%, Mateus Uribe 17%, Gustavo Bau 14%, and Igor Chonovsky 17%. On the chat, the live chat that's going on, people are saying the best player from Mexico right now is Omar Gonzalez. I thought that was kind of funny. And what's going on. But let's get right into it. Let's jump into our program. We got lots and lots of topics, and we only have an hour, and we already started late. So let's jump right in and talk about the madness of CONCACAF. This was going to be a show that when we looked about it on last week, we said, all right, Mexico getting the record points. I'm sure the Juan Carlos Osorio topics would be in there. People saying fuera, what he did was wrong. But no, it got tiered of the madness that happens last Tuesday in one of the craziest World Cup qualifying nights for at least the Hex and CONCACAF that I remember. Which everybody always knows obviously knows what's happened. So everybody wants to hear our roast. It's like they're on the chat there. Let's roast the USA. Obviously, it's still a rivalry for some of you guys. I asked before in the chat, in my own personal Twitter, I said, would you be happy if the US did make it? And it was 50-50. I think it actually ended up to being like 60% no, we wouldn't be happy. Let them go through, and 50. And obviously 40% or so said, no, screw them. The U.S. can miss. It doesn't matter to me. So very split on that. It could be obviously because we're in the United States. But overall, with the end of the night, just lots of mixed emotions from a lot of you fans, from the I'm glad to the no, they're my second team, or even I feel bad for them. But I would love to hear you guys' reaction on the night. And is it different, because two of you are in Mexico, and obviously you talk to people and you're hearing out there maybe outside of Twitter and the internet, and if that's different. So Tom, on what happened on Tuesday and the main story, even though Mexico didn't win, Costa Rica didn't win, we didn't get to that historic 24 points. 24 points? 24 points. The U.S. not going to the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's great for the region, to be honest. I don't think it's great for kind of us who are involved in, the English language Mexican football content, because I think it's all part of the same package. So, if the US national team doesn't go, there's less, that rivalry is not quite there, the World Cup, not just in terms of the teams playing each other, but which is going to go further, which is going to do. And we can talk about Costa Rica and we can talk about Panama, but it's not the same. Everybody knows that. In terms of a marketing point of view, promotion, the TV companies, the journalists out there, it's different. So I think it's a negative for the region. And yeah, I mean, obviously fans are going to like it because it's a rivalry. It's just natural. Any sports rivalry, you don't want the rival to do well. But the only thing I'd say is, and I don't think people have mentioned it, but let's not forget 4 years ago where Mexico were at, and let's not forget the details. Mexico did exactly the same thing as the United States. Last 2 games, Mexico needed 2 wins. They got that overhead kick, Raul Jimenez, and everyone, brilliant, but they played terribly against Panama in the Azteca. And then they went to Costa Rica and they bottled it. They didn't play. They couldn't play. They were froze. And exactly the same thing happened to the United States. The only difference is the results in other games. So I think the US soccer now is going to have a kind of reflect on everything that's going on. But exactly the same happened.
To stop you really quick, but you got to understand that when Mexico 4 years ago was playing against one of the best Costa Rican teams in the history of Costa Rica, in Costa Rica, where they still haven't lost yet, it was going to be a feat to beat Costa Rica in Costa Rica and needed other results. And
but
the
that's
US.
Not the point. That's not the point. The point is that throughout the hexagonal, that it got to that point. So they were that bad. I mean, there's no excuse for it, for Mexico to be there. But the only thing is, I know, it's Mexico fans are going to like it, but let's not forget Mexico were there 4 years ago, and not much has changed. Not much has changed. I'm saying, like, it's not really worth being kind of arrogant about it because Mexico was in the situation and couldn't dig itself out.
In fact, I think that Mexico actually had, even though Mexico was able to get that qualifying, that playoff qualifier, that they actually finished with less points and less wins. The United States this time around. I don't know. And I think that I think Tom makes a good point. And I don't know, maybe this is the worst podcast to listen to if we're discussing trying to roast the U.S. men's national team, because I don't know. When I think about that game, I can't. I mean, that seemed like a dream scenario. Like, if you would have told me beforehand that this is exactly what happened, this is exactly, like, just down to the last minute where the United States literally did need something from us from that 5 minutes of injury time that we had. If we would have scored, that would have pushed them through. And that we didn't get that goal and that they were pushed out because of that. That seems like a dream scenario, but I can't help but, I don't know, I feel bad. I'm speaking not as like as a journalist or an analyst. I'm speaking as a fan, and I just, as someone who doesn't consider the U.S. men's national team to be my second team. They've never been my team for numerous reasons, but I don't know. I just genuinely feel bad, and I do, like Tom said too, I do feel like this doesn't help the national team. I like the fact that I like it when the U.S. pushes Mexico. I like it when there's a really strong competition and rivalry between the two, and I don't know. In the short term, I guess it feels. Yeah, it feels nice. Of course, it feels nice. There's a lot of I would be lying to say I haven't been listening to a lot of American soccer podcasts and just thoroughly enjoying it, like just enjoying the response. But I still, in the long term, I feel bad, and I just don't know if it's good for the national team.
I mean, you gotta if it's good for the national team, no. Obviously, the more if the U.S. was Spain and Argentina, and we're facing those guys every 4 years, great. Let's have the more competition. We get it that this is probably U.S. missing the World Cup isn't best for our football. U.S. getting better, the rivalry, the zone, great. As a fan, though, that's where I think you step out of it. And as a fan, people are celebrating. Why? Because 2002, it's part of the rivalry. I was there crying in 2002, or I remember "You're not going to Brazil" chants 4 years ago by the U.S. fans saying, hey, so on that sense. But then again,
2002 just feels so far away, and that just seems so. That just seems like so. I'm not gonna say it's irrelevant. It just seems so long. That was 15 years ago. That was. Yeah, but that's because it just.
Cups. I mean, it's. I'm not saying it's over, but I get why fans are happy, and it's okay to have that. Fans. Naive, you're in Mexico City. All right, you're talking to people, maybe relatives, maybe that you're there. How's the consensus? I mean, because I'm hearing everyone's like, oh, you know what, poor USA for not making it.
Yeah, no, I think. There's always that idea that over there in the U.S. they manage to do well the processes, that they respect the processes, and to their dismay or to their bad run. You know, they fired Klinsmann when everything was going downhill, and they brought in Bruce Arena, who knows the game and was kind of supposed to save this whole ordeal. I think it's a negative for U.S. soccer, just U.S. soccer, not going to the World Cup. I don't think it affects the region. I mean, I think what I see is, you know, another team's going to get a chance to go to a World Cup, like Panama. And I think that's positive for the region, considering how everybody calls it a weak confederation and whatnot. You know, the more teams get a chance to go to those competitive areas, well, I think that's going to increment the level. I think it's a negative for U.S. soccer because it was a bad process, you know, that was coming, that you could see it, you know, missing 2 Olympics in the CONCACAF region, in this confederation, to not qualify to the Olympics in the CONCACAF region twice, back-to-back in a row, that's a red sign already. And at least Mexico has been able to qualify to the Olympics and even won the Olympics in 2012. So even when there was disaster 4 years ago, at least you had that glimmer of hope that, you know, shoot, at least in 2012, they managed to win the gold medal. And it was a series of mistakes and whatnot that happened there with Mexico. It was a fault for the players and a fault for the coaching, I would say. And that's the disaster. And here with the U.S., I just think that they were counting too much on players that perhaps weren't at their finest level. And at the end, the guy that was shining the most was Pulisic, who's in Dortmund, you know, the one that's in a good European club.
Yeah.
So here, I think you got to see it that way. And you also have to see it from the other side of the coin, which is Mexico has been doing good things that are, you know, it might not look resounding or astonishing because it's not, but at least it's there. You know, Mexico is dominating in each of the youth levels. From U17, well, actually, right now the U.S. actually has a good U17 team, and I think that's positive. But we won't see that U17 team shine until maybe in 6 years. So look, I think Mexico had a good World Cup qualifying, and it was thanks to the players and thanks to the coach. I mean, what can you say? I mean, it was a perfectly executed qualifiers. Only one loss, and that was an accidental loss, I would say, in Honduras. It was just a crazy, bizarre game.
But for me, here's the thing about, you know, say Panama and Honduras potentially going to the World Cup compared to the United States. Like, I think the United States has got the potential to kind of grow and be, you know, like it has been a real rival, but also grow with Mexico. And I think if Mexico and the United States can get in the top 10 or top, you know, 8, 7 teams in the world, then it's one of the best rivalries in world football. It's got so many ingredients. But I look at that Honduras game and I look at the way they're playing football, the direct, you know, it's the fouls, the cramping up at the end, the size of the grass on the field. I mean, it's like I'm nothing against them because they got the job done and respect to them. And the same with Panama to a degree. But I just don't think those teams are going to go to the World Cup and really do much different. You know, yes, they're going to progress, but I just think the US is the team that Mexico can.
And it has to do with resources, Tom. I mean,
exactly.
About it. Mexico, the main sport in Mexico is football. So of course, 4 years ago, if Mexico would have missed the World Cup, it would have been se acaba el mundo. The world ends if Mexico doesn't go 4 years ago. In the US, at least they have, quote unquote, other sports. They got other leagues.
You tell the regular American, hey, the U.S. missed the World Cup. Idiots. All right.
I was actually in New York I was not in Mexico City when the elimination happened. I was in New York, and it was half and half, I would say. No, there was people that were concerned about the issue.
I think even with its half and half, what the World Cup provides, that you bring in millions of new fans, all those casual soccer fans in the United States who would never care about, or maybe not even people who care about soccer, who just care about sports. They watch it because of the World Cup, and the World Cup is almost like I know someone described it like the World Cup is like the gateway drug to soccer. You know, like you watch the World Cup, you support the U.S. men's national team. You support, I don't care what national team you support, but if a U.S.-based fan will support some sort of national team, then maybe you'll get into club soccer. Then you'll get into, maybe you'll get into perhaps Liga MX because of that. There are millions and millions of fans who would not be watching the World Cup next summer from the United States. Potential Liga MX fans too. I'm not saying it's going to be a significant amount, but I'm going to say that there might be some that aren't going to be watching or aren't going to become soccer fans because the U.S. doesn't make it. And I know we can't.
The women will be there winning it probably. but in
the end, if you can't get a draw against Trinidad and Tobago's B or C, whatever that was, that the B or C team, like you can't justify them deserving a spot. I know there was a ghost goal as well, but I think that ghost goal is almost irrelevant when you just consider like how poorly and badly the U.S. played in that last game.
Look, I was
awful,
about the rivalry with the U.S. and Mexico. I mean, you have made great points about it and what it signifies for us in the media and what it means sociologically in the U.S. But when you look at the results from 2009 onwards, the U.S. has 4 wins. 2 of those wins were friendlies, one in Azteca and the one in San Antonio where we were. And then the other 2 wins happened in Columbus, the place where they never lose. And now Osorio's Mexico went there and got the win. So it's 4 wins since 2009 against Mexico. In those direct games, specifically, like, for example, the CONCACAF Cup final in 2015, where Paul Aguilar scored the goal. So ironic that Paul Aguilar scored the winner. He's not going to go to the World Cup, and neither the U.S. is going to go to the World Cup. But it tells you how Mexico has outgrown the U.S. substantially.
Yeah.
Because the competitor, when they came to Azteca,
I'm not sure.
To Azteca, Tom, they parked the bus in Azteca.
Yeah. But I mean, that's how you get a result. I just think that if you look 4 years ago, Mexico were never that bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're almost not making that. They weren't that bad. And then I think, obviously Mexico in first place now, they're not perfect. I mean, we know that. We know there's many issues with that team. And I think with the US, they're not that bad. They're not as bad as the hexagonal has shown.
Exactly.
And I don't know, but I just look a bit deeper. And I know on the youth side, we can be positive, but I don't know, just being devil's advocate now. I mean, watching the under-17s team, it's not good. I mean, Diego Lainez has been superb, don't get me wrong. But it's not great that he's got one player who's so much better than the rest. I mean, if you watch, other teams in the tournament, even Iran, I'm sure we'll see tomorrow. I mean, Iran have got a number of good players. England have a number of quality players, and Mexico seems to just have one.
Yeah,
to take
that much better than everybody else. I mean, if you had Diego Lainez,
I don't know if
so.
Almost every team that he's played, it looks like he's better than everybody else. When he was playing the English,
not the opposition.
I think the problem with the youth teams as of late in Mexico has been a coaching problem. I think, for example, I remember the time when Sergio Almaguer was the youth 20 coach, and you could tell right away that Almaguer really didn't have a sense of the talent that he had at his disposal. And now here with Arteaga, I do understand that there's talent, maybe the level of talent is not there, but, we mentioned De La Rosa and Torres from Atlas. Those are and Lainez, those 3 are supposed to be the ones that blaze and everything together. And maybe it's not working out. But I suspect that maybe it might be a coaching problem. Arteaga did well with the last generation, but now I'm seeing deficiencies there in not understanding how to regroup the team or how to set it on the field. I think that it's really the fact that they didn't create that many chances against Chile, Chile, of course, they sat back, but they couldn't break through. It was at least, that kid from Querétaro, Pérez, was a bright note in that game against Chile. But then he took him off to someone else, and that was a dumb decision.
I mean, I honestly haven't had a chance to watch any of the U17 games, but if this was at the U20 level, perhaps I'd be more worried. But because it's at the U17 level, it honestly does. I'm not too bothered by it if Mexico does poorly in that tournament. I think that, as long as you do have a few noteworthy players who stand out, like I said, I watched the tournament, like I haven't been waking up at 4:30. As long as you still have those noteworthy players, they could potentially be key players for the national team 6-7 years down the line. But at the U17 level, Mexico not doing well in the World Cup, I don't know. I don't know if that's really too worrisome or bothersome.
Let's go back, because now we're gone into the U17 and we're talking about how bad the U.S. is in the World Cup. We have Mr. Jason Markowitz, our producer of the Mexican Soccer Show. Is going to read a little bit of some comments that have been going on. Definitely won't miss them because there's some spicy ones on there.
That's right. Hey guys, the chat is today. We have a few good comments based on some of the earlier conversation we had. Of course, that guy with the name 23 says Fueroiso to keep the tradition alive. Edson Lerma is there, and he said that he agrees with Tom that, and this is on the point of the U.S. missing out on the World Cup, that Mexico won't forget 4 years ago, but this year that the U.S. men's national team had it a lot easier than we had it 4 years ago. Joel G says Honduras were offsides, something that we haven't quite mentioned yet on one of their goals there in that game that was mostly meaningless for us, but nonetheless.
Highly relevant for others.
Yes, substantial for others for sure. Vinny Kick says that he's good with Costa Rica and Panama replacing USA's place in CONCACAF. And Sickness Unto Death reminds us that the U.S. not only missed out on the World Cup, but also the last two Olympics, which is certainly telling. And a U.S. fan, C-Train 36, says that they should have put out the New England Patriots out there because they.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, I'm gonna dive back into the weeds now, guys, because there's a lot going on there. So.
Best of luck.
I mean, I said it before. I mean, no. Asked me 5 years ago if I wanted the U.S. out of the World Cup, I would have said yes, sign it. I don't care. They're my rivals. I'm still hurt since 2002. Columbus. I guess just I've known a lot of fans that always throw in my face, text me what's going on. Fast forward to now, getting to meet so many great people, so many U.S. journalists, and I couldn't even imagine, being them because I thought I was that 4 years ago in that Costa Rica game. So all the friends out there, it happens, and I'm sure we'll see what the U.S. in the next World Cup, and the rivalry will stay alive. But my perfect scenario would have been, Mexico getting them in, right? Or the U.S. qualifies for the World Cup. Then they die and they crash and burn at the World Cup, score not winning a single game, and we can rub it in their faces. But at least you have a rival. When you have a rival that you can go against, it's like if you think about it, I wouldn't want the U.S. men's national team to not exist all of a sudden for some reason they don't. You still want a rival, and that's part of the rivalry, them existing. The fact that they're not the World Cup, it's kind of sad.
This is my from a Mexican point of view, this is the worry moving forward. US soccer, off the back of what's happened, is going to properly restructure, go for put money into youth production, do things the right way. Whereas Mexico at the minute, I don't think it learned from 4 years ago. I mean, there's certain things that's happened since then. Like, namely, the amount of teams that are playing with young Mexicans is poor, you know what I mean? I don't think in terms of the clubs, compared to 4 years ago, I don't think that, they're not playing young players, and it's a struggle, you know what I mean? And I think Mexico has to can't be complacent. It has to keep producing these players, keep improving youth system, improve the league. I mean, at the end of the day, the debate in the US right now is going to go on about youth academies, coaches, the quality of coaches, how many youth academies in Southern California, how many, I tell you what, how many quality academies are there in Mexico? 15?
Do you really think the U.S. is going to go to restructure and everything, and it's going to be for the better, though? The way that
I think, I mean, just
I don't know. But honestly, my point is in Mexico. You know what I mean? I'm not sure what's going to happen here. But if you look at Mexico, how many proper academies are there in the whole country? And I think this is what Mexico. Forget the World Cup, making the World Cup, not making the World Cup. I just don't think Mexico learned as it should have done from 4 years ago, and that's the worry. Like how many of the 18 Liga MX clubs have what you would call good academies? What, 14, maybe 13, 14? Yeah. How many of the second division have? Maybe 3, 4.
No, second division. It's disappearing.
And I think the intensity of the conversation that you're hearing about supporting youth soccer, but like putting investment in youth soccer, what you're hearing right now in the United States, I don't think that's something at the same level that you've heard yet in Mexico. And it's just that, I mean, who knows if they'll actually follow through? Who knows if they actually will put that investment in youth soccer? I assume they will, but I think that's an excellent point that Tom just brought up.
No, and let's be honest. 4 years ago, Mexico did everything in its power to miss the World Cup. I mean, they did everything in their power to miss the World Cup, and it didn't happen. And we asked ourselves many times, what would have happened had Mexico not gone there? And what kind of revolution might have that provoked? Because we still see, like Tom says, the complacency. The same people that have been making the main decisions in the national team are still making the decisions in the national team. We saw that with the TV deal, how that played out. Those people have influence in the structure of the national team, and it is becoming clearer and clearer that there's a split between what happens with the national teams and what happens with the league. The league plays a different way. They bring that they switch the 10-8 rule to a 9-9 rule, but it clearly means that they're looking more at the foreign talent and they're not paying attention that much to forming players. I mean, it's just certain clubs. And unfortunately, right now, for example, Santos and Querétaro, who are two clubs that push the youth, they're actually going to be fighting for relegation next season.
Yeah.
And Atlas
too. Yep.
This is a big buzzkill. This is supposed to be a happy show, and it's all about what Mexico is doing.
I was telling you, you asked the wrong podcast, man. You asked the wrong podcast.
And this was supposed to be celebrating, and now it's
you sold it first.
I think but overall, we've always been a critical show in that sense.
No.
But look, I think even with all the critique that we have mentioned, I do understand, or I do think that there's certain things that Mexico has been doing right. I mean, it has not been perfect, but it's running some way or another.
It almost was. It almost was. If that last game would have somewhat mattered, it could have been perfect. But the thing was, like, Honduras went in there with a mass amount of motivation. Clearly, they're the ones who were more motivated than Mexico, and we didn't have our best 11 in that game either. I mean, honestly, I don't know, and especially with that way that second half went, I don't know if there's really too much to read into that last game for Mexico, other than obviously what it implied for the U.S. men's national. Obviously, it's highly relevant, but just I don't know. That game seems so. I don't know.
Everybody was watching the other games almost. Like I can't remember things that were happening. I'm like, was Mexico playing well? Were they not? One thing I do want to say is all those conspiracy theories that want, that FIFA wants the U.S. and Mexico to always succeed, and that phantom goal and all of that. I mean, the U.S. is out, and Mexico is going to be out.
I mean, even at the Gold Cup where they try and set it up for the final, it's not happening.
So forget, that it's all about money, and FIFA wants Mexico always to go through. I think that's most actually Central American countries that always said that it's always because of, I mean, obviously it's about money, but at the same time there isn't anyways. It was crazy, and it's like two whistles, right? I'm celebrating on one side, and the other side I'm like, yeah, but I'm sure the fans are extremely happy.
And it show a lot of things about how the hex works, because for example, Panama, they didn't lose a single home game. They tied some, but they didn't lose single one, and that's why they're in the World Cup.
What do you do?
The U.S. lost twice. The U.S. lost twice in the U.S. And
you tie away, and you win at home. That's all you have to do. Exactly. No, you don't lose at home. I think you don't give away points. If you can win at home and tie some games, you're in. And the U.S., I mean, I was reading Amy. Obviously, you see her, and she's tweeting right now. Amy with a great article she wrote on why surprisingly she's not happy with the U.S. making it, and out of the 24 scenarios in those three countries, the U.S. there's only one scenario in those that had the U.S. out, and it happened to be like that. It was in the very last 5 minutes, and no one thought that this was going to happen. I don't know. I was just kind of like, I know the U.S. stunk it up, but the fact that we lost and Costa Rica lost and the U.S. lost.
I think one thing that keeps getting forgotten that we need to bring up too is just like, I don't know, shout out to Panama and Panama fans. I mean, that's an incredible feat for them. And just like the response from was like the president of Panama, who just announced like, tomorrow, no work, no one's going to work. It's a national holiday, and it's their first ever World Cup. So I think it was hugely significant.
It was a center back that scored the winning goal.
Yeah.
Roman Torres, no?
Yeah.
Like a freaking striker. Who's that? Nice shot.
That golazo by Trinidad and Tobago, though. I mean, you're watching that. Just everything out of that whole night was hilarious. You go back to the U.S. and sorry, Tom, really quick. I was watching it with a Costa Rican fan, right? And we're both kind of looking at it, going like, I guess, do we want the U.S. in? Okay, let's save her or whatever. But he goes, and then another Costa Rica fan kind of called me up and was just like, no, I am glad the U.S. is out. I remember 2010 in the very last minute, Costa Rica was in, and it was that corner kick. They were already qualified. Boom, right? The U.S. did it to Panama 4 years ago, and it just happens. The very last game is interesting for two or three teams that's in there. I think I was talking to Cesar. I'm just kind of glad I'm just kind of in the background, and it doesn't bother me because everybody else is going crazy. Being a Panama, Honduras, and U.S. fan in that night must have been nuts.
Yeah, definitely. No, especially Trinidad. I mean, against Mexico as well. I mean, what were they doing? They were playing like they were playing for World Cup place.
Yeah,
they shot Mexico, and then went home and did shot the United States. I mean, but going back to the fair play, let's give them let's give him credit for playing to the very end of the hex and keeping it competitive, because it would be so easy to roll over. But fair play to the young players as well. It wasn't even their A team, and to come out and put on that kind of performance against Mexico and then against the States was, well, I think it's good for them going forward. I mean, it looks like they've got a few decent players.
I don't know who scored that goal, but that golazo from Trinidad and Tobago, that second goal, I forgot who that was, but that was an incredible strike. And I don't know if that was a first-team player, a second-team player, or just some random kid that they called up, but just like, what a way to just kind of like,
I feel like Howard
make his mark in the hex.
I got this. This is normal for me. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
All right, guys. There it is, guys. Our semi-roast for all of you fans. We'll keep it classy too.
Did we actually do it? I mean, I don't think we roasted them.
And then, I mean, we it
was like the anti-roast. I'm okay with that, but
then hey. All right. So what's next for the U.S.? I mean, for Mexico. What's I'm already going into what's next for Mexico. We did throw out a question out there saying, in which position does El Tri need the most improvement before next summer? Right, the hex is gone. We got first, and looking at that, and that what's the biggest weak spot? New options. And Jason, if you're in there, what were some of those responses? You can tell us from the.
Show yourself.
Yeah, here I am.
Show yourself. You still there? You still there, Jason?
Show yourself.
So we got a lot of responses, and a lot of them were similar. A lot of people asking or really questioning the central defensive midfielder, the holding midfielder position that I think is a concern for a lot of people. Francisco Zenteno said this. We had a whole bunch of people say that same thing. Where Goes West also mentions that it'd be nice to have a younger goalkeeper on the bench at least. Right back, also an issue. Just a backup for Layun, just completely depending on Layun is an issue. JD Torres Jr.
Alanis.
JD Torres Jr. says he doesn't really understand why Jonah doesn't get more opportunities in that position, the defensive midfield position. Our Pizarro 20s also looking for a new goalkeeper.
I thought he was suspended.
Right. And holding midfield. Yeah, he's
tweeting
time. And Ivan Pineda says fullbacks with 5 exclamation points, so it really means it. And friend of the show at T-Shirt Text says Paul Aguilar back, please.
Yeah.
And also Ryan Chavez went out a little bit different. He's asking for new strikers. He's worried about strikers. Can't rely on Cheech, Raul, or Uribe. So
I agree with him.
2018 Uribe.
I agree with him.
Hey, what happened to Raul Gudinho? Someone just really quick on the chat.
He might play Champions League. You never know. You never know. Never know.
All right, let's jump in, guys. Well, there are some friendlies for Mexico, November, Belgium, and
good friendlies, 5-star friendlies.
I mean, Weasel, you brought up what's next for the national team, and this is the exact step that Mexico should be taking. Friendlies like these. I mean, we've all complained about. I mean, even though you and I are based here from the United States, and we get to watch Mexico friendlies every now and then, I do think that I think a lot of people think this that Mexico should be playing more games outside of the CONCACAF region, more friendlies outside, especially a game like this. 2 games like this in Europe. So I think I would like to see some strong starting 11s from Mexico in these 2 games. And I'm not, to be honest, I'm not too bothered what the result is like. I mean, if you could even make an argument that if Mexico loses 2 of these games, it might be good for them. It might be good for them. It might be kind of like a little bit of a wake-up call, especially after the hexagonal. But what I want to see from the national, but I want to see more importantly from Osorio, is just a very strong, what his ideal starting 11 will be in those 2 games.
No, this is I think 2 great matches. The results is the last thing. If you're a true soccer fan, you always want the win, but the ranking's it's not a priority anymore. This isn't going to hurt anywhere in the qualifying anymore. These are perfect games for you to see what it's take against really good competition in environments that we're not used to. It's going to be cold in Poland, and in Belgium. If you remember when Mexico went last year or 2 years ago.
That was like 2 years ago, right? Was that when there was a screenshot of all of them with the blankets?
Yeah,
and the beanies chilling on the bench.
Belarus. That was in Belarus.
Belarus. Yeah, right? And it was way too cold. We lost that game. And I think this is great. This is if we lose 5-0, it's going to tell us something. If we win, it's going to tell us something. So finally, games that matter, and it's just about having the right players. And I'm excited to see what Juan Carlos Osorio is actually going to do. Here it is, the test that we've been wanting. Now again, it's we can't really take much from it, but I think these are great games that are going to be scheduled.
I mean, I think the result does matter, because this process has been so, you can argue it both ways, and people argue it both ways. Yeah. One step, on one hand, Mexico are number one in the hexagonal. It's been easy, and it's the first time since 2006 we've been able to say that. But then on the other hand, you've had these couple of results against the top teams. So I think it's really important for Mexico that they don't get rolled over. If there's a goal in it, then maybe it's not so bad. But I honestly, with the way the press is as well right now, I mean, the negativity surrounding Osorio's position, not just the press, but the fans as well. I mean, it's all so negative going, 6 months or 7 months from a World Cup. And I think the team really needs a couple of positive results to kind of, shut those people up and go into the World Cup kind of with some confidence, having got results against big teams, because that's the question mark against Osorio's reign.
I think maybe if these games were closer to the World Cup, that maybe, at least in my mind, it'd be a little bit more significant to get a good result. But I don't know. To me, I don't know if it's really too important whether they get a win or not. Obviously, you want them to get a win. Obviously, if you're thinking
we can freak out if we lose 2-0 to Poland.
Maybe that's what it is. It's just like that if we do lose, I mean, yeah, Tom, we don't want to get rolled over. That'd be awful. No, you don't want to get rolled over by either side. But if Mexico gets a 2-1 loss, 1-0 loss, I think it's the end of the world. I still think that you can make the argument that I think it'd be good for the national team. It'd be a good wake-up call. It'd be a good kind of like example of what they might face next summer.
Just to notice exactly, the deficiencies maybe that the national team has and they have to address and improve. Yeah. I think these two games are important because I think it tests Mexico's Achilles heel. It will test it in both games. I think the Achilles heel right now is not having a concise defensive midfielder in the middle. And then, in my opinion, one of the things that worried me in the last week of the World Cup qualifying is the lack of minutes that Moreno, Salcedo, and Diego Reyes have. And you could tell that, specifically Salcedo. I think Salcedo was really shaky in that game against Trinidad and Tobago. You could tell that he wasn't timing the plays well, and that's because he's just not playing. And right now with Moreno, I mean, Moreno has been Mexico's most consistent defender in Europe for many years, and now he's put in this situation where he's just not playing, and I think that's going to affect big time because not having one of your best defenders, your best left-footed defender, center back. By a distance, it troubles a little bit the ideas that Osorio wants to transmit. And I don't understand this idea about the fullbacks and whatnot, but I think Layún is going to be on the left. And on the right, it is a question mark. And look, finding extra fullbacks. I mean, for example, I was thinking this week about Luis Reyes. Luis Reyes went to the Confederations, and now we don't even know what's going on with that guy. And we thought that, and we said in this show that he was showing things that were interesting. But now he's not even in the map. Well, we thought
I did. I will admit, I definitely was on the.
Tom and I, and we did say it was an interesting prospect.
Yeah.
Because he was putting on the assists, he was scoring, goals, and you were thought, well, maybe this is a good left-footed option. But now he's not even on the map. So I think that's a little bit troubling right now when you look at the lack of depth a little bit, no?
Yeah. Just a quick. I think the other positive about these games, the fact that they're in Europe, is I honestly think earlier this season, you look at Mexico's Europe-based players, they've already had trips across the Atlantic twice, and we're only in mid-October. They only started the season in like late August, and all of a sudden, and I think they found it really difficult to kind of establish themselves and to find rhythm because they've not been there much, and it's really difficult to come back from one of those trips and settle right back in, especially when you've just moved club.
No, that's actually. I mean, especially. I think that's a good point too. Especially if a player like Moreno, who, I mean, he's still trying to find minutes in his team. And obviously, like him traveling back and forth, like I said, across the Atlantic would be significant. It'd probably like potentially hurt his playing time for Roma. But now that the games are going to be over there in Europe, it might be a little bit easier for him, especially if he's still trying to find some time to train with the team.
Yeah, and then after these games, it's November straight through to March, where that's it.
Yeah.
Focus on your club, do your thing.
Yeah.
Except the friendlies that are coming for next year and the early friendlies that I'm sure will be scheduled in the U.S.
Real quick. Real quick about also a positive, I think, in these last games was Herrera's display. I think Herrera did took command. He was captain. I did see some glimpses of the 2014 Herrera, but I just keep thinking that they need to find that defensive midfielder, because right now here we see Antonio Rojas saying Edson Alvarez has played better at right back than Salcedo ever has. He should start. Well, I don't know if Edson, you're kind of wasting Edson as a right back, even though he does it great. I think Edson should get more shots as a defensive midfielder.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think the defensive midfield position is fascinating because the player that Osorio wanted was Guido Pizarro, and that's why he tried to call him up, but the rules didn't allow it. And now I think that Herrera on his own there, if you're playing a 4-3-3 and one holding midfielder, Herrera on his own when you play a weaker team, for me is very good.
Yeah. Weaker teams. That's the key word. Weaker teams.
Yeah, and that's the key. But I'm wondering if Osorio, bearing in mind the second half against Trinidad, the formation changed, and it was Herrera and Guardado together.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering and we've seen that before when they play a 3-4-3. And I'm just wondering if that isn't the solution at some point. So if you're playing a back four, you then play Herrera and Guardado in front of the back four. They kind of make up the defensive deficiencies that both of them have as individuals. You put them together and there's two of them. And then, you obviously you play your wingers. We know that. And then you play Chicharito up front. And then you play a Vela or Giovanni or whoever floating around there, in terms of just behind the striker. And so you're playing more or less a 4-2-3-1 or, I don't know, 4-2-4 if you push the striker further up.
I mean, if you want to as well, I mean, you could even put someone like Jonathan Dos Santos potentially in either Herrera's or Guardado's position as well. I mean, you've got options. You've got options there. I think it'll be interesting to see if that happens.
A bit against the United States in Columbus. That's how they played. They played with two, not holding midfielders, but two central midfielders.
Yeah, because this weekend Guardado played as sole defensive midfielder with Betis, and I'm not going to say that he did horrible. I mean, but you could tell that he didn't feel that comfortable by himself up there, because
I mean, there's a lot going on in that game.
Yeah, it was a crazy game, and look, I mean, he got dispossessed twice, I think, Guardado, so it wasn't a bad game, and he got the most touches on the ball from anyone else on the pitch. But it does make him a better player if there's a defensive midfielder up there. And that's usually Javi Garcia, but he's out injured. And that's why Guardado has 6 assists, is because he plays more up forward, not so deep. So he did kind of struggle because the velocity of the game was just tremendous. That game was, I haven't seen such a fast-paced game as that one. That's why it was 9 goals. I mean, it was just crazy.
I mean, like 5 of those showed up in the last 10 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, that was just crazy. It was beautiful. That was beautiful.
All right, guys. Well, lots and lots of talk with Mexico. I know we're almost, it's almost to the closing time of the show. We went through a lot. I'm trying to look at our looking at our.
Look, and I think it's because the national team is interesting, but one thing that I've noticed is how Rayados plays was a 4-3-3. But it's the total opposite idea to the 4-3-3 that Osorio plays, because Osorio is really possession based, and the center backs have to touch the ball a lot. But the 4-3-3 with Mohamed is interesting because you see Jonathan Gonzalez, Carlos Sanchez, and Ortiz, I think, is the Paraguayan. So Ortiz is kind of a defensive minded player, Jonathan as well, and Sanchez is the one that moves forward. So I think those are the two that sit deep, like you were saying, Tom. In the 4-3, so Celso and Jonathan sit deep, and that would be Guardado and Herrera. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
saying basically an inverted 4-3-3. You know, like so instead of the triangle being one holding and two more attacking, two more holding and one further forward, like against the States in Columbus.
All right.
Okay.
Quick question, really
All
quick.
right.
We end the Mexico segment from Edson Lerma. As of now, how far will the team go in the World Cup? Still,
Quinto partido. I'm saying it. We're
Oh.
doing it.
I honestly get out of the group stage. Obviously, it depends on who's on that group stage, but I don't see any this team giving me any hopes of, the quinto partido. Right
No,
now.
I think we'll make it. Obviously, once again, I say that, but then people ask me this question a lot too. But I always say too, let's see what the draw looks like in
Yeah, let's see what
December. Let's see what the draw looks like in December
Let's
first.
see who's going to go against us in that fourth game. I mean, the draw. I think we'll make it out of the groups, whoever it is, unless we have some crazy group where. But even then, I feel confident that Mexico does well. But against that team, elimination, the round of 16, the Spain.
Like for example,
Argentina.
a group with Poland, Mexico, Iceland, Nigeria. I think Mexico could finish first in that group, and I think that would change the dynamics of things.
Yeah.
Finishing
Yeah, that's
first
enough,
does
right?
wonders, huh?
That's a difficult group.
But
It's not
it's not
Uruguay,
Germany.
Italy,
It's not Germany.
No,
Mexico.
No, but I mean, yeah, no, I agree with you. But Nigeria are back. You know what I mean? As a force, Iceland very, very difficult to beat when they've got
True
the full
that,
11, and Poland.
But we should be
was
able
it
to go.
fifth? Yeah, for me, Mexico. I mean, for me, that group would be really open. But there's no reason to think, Mexico couldn't do it. I mean, look at what Mexico did in the Confederations Cup. I mean,
Yeah.
they did okay. I mean, it seems to be this real perception that it was a terrible tournament. I mean, it wasn't. Mexico were the fourth best team there, and they finished fourth. I
Pretty
mean,
close to being the
I
third
think it's
best
just the way
too.
that it played. I mean, I think it's just the way it played against, New Zealand.
What I will say though, I mean, who knows how important this will be, but you've got a generation of players who I assume a lot of them recognize that this might be their last World Cup. A lot of these guys in their late 20s, they still have the talents to go to the next World Cup. They do. A lot of these guys do. I mean, Chicharito can still do it. Herrera
Who will
can still
not be
do
in the
it.
next World Cup?
But what I'm saying is that what I'm going with this is that a lot of these guys have an opportunity to do very well. I think a lot of these guys have the potential to push to that quinto partido. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of variables to consider, but there is a very talented generation in their late 20s who might recognize that it's going to be their final opportunity, in the World Cup. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
I find it ironic, for example, last night after Jonathan won his first game with the Galaxy, after arriving from Villarreal, and he said,
was that really his first?
I'm gonna,
Oh my God.
that was the first win
Oh no!
with the team. But like,
Wasn't that their first win?
together in Galaxy. But and he says this is gonna be my first World Cup, so I want to prepare as best as I can. Okay,
Go to Mexico.
having a training camp for 3 months without playing football, that's not the best way to prepare for a World Cup. So I look, I like Jonathan how he's been playing as of late, but if I don't think the three amigos, Vela, Giovanni, and Jonathan are gonna be in the World Cup. I think either one of those is gonna miss out, or even two. But that's my perception right now.
I think they'll be there.
The three amigos,
all right.
amigos are gonna be there. So
I think the three people are going to be there, but I don't know if they're going to play. They're definitely going to be there. Okay, really quick. I know we got a lot, and Jason's going to kill me because we did one of the topics of the four.
I have a bunch of notes. We've done that so far, right there.
Yeah. so, really quick, U17 tomorrow at 4:30 in the morning for us in the Pacific time. Cesar's not going to watch it. He just said right out, I'm not going to watch it. I'm calling him out. I'm not going to watch it.
My dad's giving me updates. He wakes up early and he gives me updates. I'm like, oh, Inez, he's doing all right? All right, cool.
Tom's going to watch it. But it doesn't look good. Mexico not winning any game so far. 2 ties, being outscored against a team from Iran that is surprising of the U17 tournament, right? The surprise U17 tournament, doing really well. Naive and Tom, is there hope for Mexico? Like it seems on paper, do you see it one of the most difficult times for U17, which we haven't done really well since?
I think there's hope. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a terrible group of players. I don't think they're playing well at all. I think De La Rosa is out of confidence. He's not a bad player, but he's just lacking that confidence in front of goal. Jairo Torres has been decent. Lainez has been very good, but they're relying too much on him. On the other side, Iran beat Mexico 3-0 ahead of the tournament in a friendly. Mm-hmm. So this Iranian team is a very good team. On the other hand, Iran isn't a team that you expect to go this far in the tournament. It's a massive country. There's going to be big pressure on them. Mexico's expected to lose this game. They're the underdog. There's enough quality to do it. It's just, can they put together a game? Because so far, they've been pretty poor. I mean, the Chile side, was defeated easily by England, and then lost against who was it? Iraq.
Iraq.
And for Mexico not be able to get that result, I thought was really disappointing. But yeah, can Mexico do it? Yeah. But they're going to have to put a game together far better than what we've seen so far this World Cup.
There you go. Any other thoughts, Naive?
No, I think following Tom's lines, I mean, I think we have to still kind of, I have to analyze a little bit more of the stats, like plays, crosses created, shots taken. I mean, but in that game against Chile, it wasn't pleasing to the eye, I would admit. And so, I mean, the fact that they made it to the round of 16 a panzazo. I mean, it was straight up panzazo. So once you hear that word panzazo, it's not good, and that probably means that they're going to be eliminated tomorrow.
Yeah,
you don't have to know much about the tournament to see that they got 2 draws and 1 loss and 1 into the round of 16. So that's all I'm saying.
I mean, what Arteaga should be doing is, there's a period in the second half against England where Mexico actually played really well. And they started to come back, and Lainez scored both 2 goals. Nice. If they need to play like that, but they need to put it together for 90 minutes. And if they can do that, then they've got a good chance because they're a decent team. And like I said, that England team is a very, very good team. Like, they've got players like Foden, Sancho, who were really, really hyped, So, but they gave them a game. They gave England a good game. Not in the first half, though. They were terrible. They're very inconsistent. They can't put a full 90 minutes together.
All right, well, we'll see if some of you guys waking up. If they go to penales, Tom, just Naive, put it on our chat or WhatsApp. Just be like, hey guys, penales. So Cesar and I can wake up.
I'm still not waking up.
We'll see where it goes. All right, really quick, Liga MX, an exciting weekend, Liga MX. 3 talking points really quick. What should we know about what is happening going forward and what just happened, Liga MX? What's crucial?
Clásico Joven was a big thing for the weekend. León getting that win over Tigres, and then there's a draw between Monterrey getting another win, and also, of course, that Chivas loss.
That's 4 things.
I said it's a draw, and that might have been exactly what Jason put on the guideline, but this is the 4 that I'm bringing
up. Biggest surprise or biggest story then, if I have to put it out there?
For me, Chivas. I mean, the champion. It's 12. They're already not making it. I mean, that is a very, very poor defensive title. I mean, to be down in 16th position and struggling so badly. I mean, I didn't think they played particularly badly against Morelia, but they missed a lot of chances, but at the same time they gave up a lot of chances as well. So I mean, I just think it's been a really disappointing season for Chivas, to be honest, after being champion, and really they're relying on the cup now for a bit of dignity and maybe a result against America. But I thought America were really good in the Clásico Joven. I thought there was a degree of pragmatism from Miguel Herrera that we didn't see from Paco Gemes. And I thought that kind of steered the game towards America. For
me, the big thing was León's win over Tigres. I mean, they've been doing extremely well under Gustavo Diaz. Now you brought up, Mosquera, who's a key player in the defense, so that is a very good defense. I think that's something that they've done quite well with since Diaz has taken over. And it's just, this is a team that has 5 wins and they're now in 3rd place. So that's something to keep an eye on, especially with the playoffs coming up. Where it's just, I would have honestly, before this season started, I wouldn't have put León in my top 8, but now they're looking extremely strong under Diaz as their manager with the team.
A team that doesn't tie. So either they win or they lose. They're winning right now. You only have maybe like one time in the game. Yeah, definitely León, right? Surprising Tigres. It feels like people keep saying, okay, when is this León team finally going to die off? And they're not going to. So great week to end there as a fan.
And Naib, I mean, personally, I was a bit disappointed with Pachuca. I thought it was a massive game for him. I thought they had the ability to get a result against Monterrey. I thought they needed it because they've obviously been struggling. But I don't know. What do you think about the game?
No, I think no. What happened there? I mean, I think, for example, I was a bit surprised that Franco Jara didn't start, and I think that is a vital player up front for them. But, you know, I think Alonso has had trouble, you know, including the new players into the mix, you know, Puig, Zagal, and Honda. And I think in that game against Monterrey, he tried to include them, but it didn't work out as planned. You know, I think Monterrey seemed as a more developed team. It was clear from start to finish. And Pachuca is definitely not close to that level as finding the right 11 and playing as a whole quite well. I mean, I think competing against Monterrey right now, not that many teams can do it. I mean, maybe America, maybe Tigres, maybe León, and that's about it. You know, after that, it's Puebla. An unstoppable force. Puebla, maybe unstoppable force right now with Monterrey, especially with the attack with Avilés and Dorlan.
Yeah, well, exciting games coming up. Lots and lots of games starting on tomorrow. With the Liga MX in the schedule, the big game, obviously Clásico Nacional on a Wednesday. For those of you that are watching, and I will try to see if we can get a pod for just specific lessons. We went a little long tonight, but really quick, the coming up. What should we look for? Biggest story coming in aside. I mean, the Clásico Nacional, Tambo.
I mean, obviously, you know, I think it's a chance for America after suffering, you know, watching Chivas win the title last season. I think it's a chance now to I don't know, to prove a point that the tide has turned once again. I mean, this rivalry of the last couple of years has gone up and down. And I think that, you know, America will feel now with Herrera back that the momentum is very much with them, and they want to, you know, prove a point against Chivas. On the other side, obviously, Almeida, the players came out in the post-game press conference alongside Almeida as a kind of show of unity. And I think, okay, that's all very well and good, but they've got to do it on the field as well. And, you know, from Chivas' point of view, there's no better place to do that than in the Azteca against America. The only other point about the game is that it seems, I don't know, it's not the most hyped Clásico Nacional. We know it's been rearranged from after the earthquake, but it just seems that it's lost a bit of that spark because Chivas are basically out of the playoffs right now.
And also, the scheduling also, I think, doesn't help either, especially like just a couple days after the weekend where it doesn't feel the same having this game on a Wednesday. But I do agree. Yeah, it does feel like the spark really isn't there for this Wednesday's game. I mean, maybe it'll build up a little bit during the next couple of days, but it does feel like something's missing.
No, and I think that Atlas Morelia is going to be an important one. You know, Atlas coming with 3 wins in a row, and Morelia, I think it's one of those teams that has been surprising so far in the Apertura. So, you know, it's going to be a home game for Atlas. Hopefully the screen is well placed now. But I think that's going to be a good one this week.
Let's keep an eye on the Champions League matches too. I think
Atlético scoring tomorrow. Someone called it on the chat.
Yeah, and also Benfica, Manchester United on Wednesday. Will Raul Jimenez get the start? I don't know. That could be good. That could be really good.
All right, guys. This has been a great show. So apologies for going a little bit over, but on the talk, thank you to all. There's lots of people on the chat that I know we used and were there. Thank you to Amy for moderating the chat and also tweeting out. Mr. Jason Markowitz producing. Sorry, we didn't do all the things that you worked so hard for us to talk about.
We skipped a lot.
Yes. So let's go, Mr. Naib Morans. We haven't had you on the pod. Close us off for this edition of the Mexican Soccer Show.
No, I think you know, the next months are going to be interesting. I mean, I think the games that Mexico will take over there and will have over there in Europe against Belgium and Poland are going to be important. You know, I think making those test runs, especially closing out the year, which I think even with, you know, the like Tom said, there's negativity, but I mean, it wasn't that bad of a year actually when you look at all the stats. And so stay positive, and you know, and Mexico's going to the World Cup and the US is not.
Oh,
Was that time perfectly or what? All
there's
right,
the burn we're
guys.
looking for.
See you on the next edition of the Mexican Soccer Show every
Best man in the
Monday.
show, that.